Now, not many of you would have heard of Evant watches. This video today is going to help you get an understanding a bit more about what kind of offerings they have. And I'd never heard of them before. That's because you can only actually get these pieces through GNOMON watches, online retailer. So check out their website. You get to see all the kind of offerings they have. And they also do partnerships with brands, effectively say, well, we have exclusive rights to be the only people that sell your watches. And it's great for the new brands going, well, we've got the effective marketing and distribution powers that be from these online retailers. That's why it's often a marriage made in heaven. Now, I've previously reviewed a watch that was only available again through GNOMON watches, and that was Hitori. And I shared that brand with you. That video was a huge success. You guys love it. You found it very interesting to find out about that. Very unusual Seiko homage piece, and it was flawed, unfortunately. And I was very honest in my review, as I will be with today with this Evant Tropic Diver. Before we get stuck in, this is a fantastic watch for 450-ish pounds. It is really good. I've really enjoyed taking photos and analysing it and getting all the details ready for you. And that's what's coming up next. After I've shown you all the stats and specs, we're going to get to the analysis. So I'll see you in a moment. Next thing is going to be, I'm going to discuss this beautiful watch. And then later on, I'm going to do a strap show to show you how versatile this kind of watch is. If you don't like the beads of rice bracelet and you just want to wear it on something a bit more casual, or something that's still water resistant but not the bracelet, here are your options. What we're going to get stuck into now is, having spent quite a bit of time with this piece, I'm going to present to you now what I have found to be the little flaws or niggles or things I've noticed which you should be aware of if you're interested in this watch. So let's get on with it. So my first criticism is the hand size, the width of them primarily. When you look how big these indices are, they are pretty large. I mean, very large. But when you look at the blob, if you will, on the hour hand, it's a bit smaller than the blob or the size of the index. So that bothers me a little bit because I would have liked it preferably to be the same size. And then the width of the minute hand, I would have liked to have been the same width as the 9 o'clock index and the same at the 6 o'clock, for example. Next up, I'm not sure what that logo is. I couldn't find out in the description anywhere what it is, but I think it looks like a little sailboat. It's quite nice, but it doesn't really go with the actual name Evant. You've got that sailboat, if that's what it is, on the crown, which is nice, and obviously on the case back as well, but I'll come back to that in a minute. I'd prefer if that wasn't there and it just said the depth rating of this watch, which is actually really good. I prefer if it actually said that instead with this lovely faux patina colour. That's loomed as well, which is cool. And I thought that could have been loomed as well if it had 300 meters on there, for example. Another slight thing, I'm not sure if it's my eyes or because of the angle or this Bakelite style ceramic bezel insert, because when you've got these rounded bezel inserts, it can knock your eye off a bit when you're looking at the alignment. Everything's spot on with the alignment the rest of the way around. But look at the 6 o'clock one. I mean, no matter what angle I hold it at, it just seems to not quite, as you can see, the perspective of it changes as you twist the watch a bit. But don't think that lines up, to be honest with you. And next up, the bezel action is very precise. You can feel and hear every single click. There's no slop in it, which is good. It's a good sign of build quality, for example. It's a bit stiff, and I've put a bit of silicone oil on the bezel, just squirted a bit around there, just see if it loosened it up a bit. But no, it feels a little bit stiff. Next up, just think the case back is a little bit bland, and that is quite cheap looking. It just looks etched, and it's starting to wear out a bit actually on this part. It scratches up really easily because it is polished under there. I just think it looks a little bit cheap. Next up, the bracelet is actually extremely comfortable. It's actually really thin, which is extremely nice. Really adds to the flexibility, which I'll go into in a minute. But the thing that is letting down a little bit is this pressed clasp here. This part is quite thin and quite cheap looking. If you look at the bit around there where it's folded over, it just looks a little bit cheap, even for a £450 watch. But the plus side is it's very light, it's very thin. But then flip back to downside again, it's not that easy to engage every time. It sometimes Doesn't feel like it positively pushes in, but it's easy to unpop, but there's no security pushers or anything. And being a quite highly rated dive watch, there's no diver's extension either at all. Other than those criticisms which I've picked out, I can't think of much else. So now it's time for me to just tell you about how awesome this watch is with all the other bits. First of all, the sizing is fantastic. It's so comfortable to wear. It says 39mm, but depends where you put your calipers. It's pretty much wherever you put it. It's a 40mm watch, but it wears like a 39. I mean, it's 1mm here or there really doesn't make a difference. At the end of the day, it wears beautifully. I'll show it on my wrist. It's so lovely. Great lug to lug, as you saw in the stats and specs section. Good dial size. Proportionally, it's beautiful. It's a really attractive watch. It wears beautifully. The conformity, the height isn't too much considering it's got a really good depth rating for diving. I really like the fact it's got a Sellita SW200 in here. I've got this movement in a watch which costs more than 3 times this price. It's a great movement. This one is running +6 a day, which is acceptable for this kind of movement, but I've had way better. Mine in my Oris is running at -2, and it's still 3 years later running exactly the same. So it's a great movement, really rugged and reliable, and the hand winding is so smooth. And you know, if you need to have it serviced somewhere down the line, it's easy to get parts and people can easily do it. Next up, I absolutely adore the styling. I mean, I said it briefly earlier, but I really do. I just think it's really pretty looking watch. It's vintage without being too overly cliche. Or maybe I'm wrong. I mean, it's got a beads of rice bracelet and faux patina and a bakelite style bezel insert, and it's got a domed crystal. There's a lot of vintage charm to this piece, but it's got all the contemporary bits, such as its sapphire, it's got AR coating, it's got a modern Swiss movement, ceramic, and the lume in this is actually fantastic. Normally old radium superluminova is not great for lasting, but in this it lasts really well. It's a huge pleasant surprise, because I'm expecting a lot of the time watches don't always have as good a lume as we are getting used to with some of these Chinese brands. This is extremely good. I'm very happy with the lume. The comfort is glorious. This bracelet, even though it has a few cheapish elements and it is push pin and all that stuff, it is so comfortable. No hair pulling. Look at this flexibility, but it doesn't feel too cheap. Normally when you have a really flexible bracelet, it feels really cheap and nasty, but not here. Lovely. Brushing, the finishing on the case especially is really good. Look at this lovely brushing on the case side here, and the contrast between that lovely bit of polished chamfering on there, breaks up the side a bit, doesn't look untidy at all, really smooth. Lovely female aspect to this solid end link, so it fits really nice and conforms immediately around the wrist. These bits aren't sharp at all, which is a very common thing in many watches, but that's not sharp. Really nicely done, really good honing. Even though they say it's black, I do really like this sunburst dial. Look at the way, even in this dim light in here, I've got my studio lights, it just really bounces. I mean, in daylight it's even better. It's gorgeous the way it plays with that light. And I really think the price is fantastic. For £450 to have this specification, and for there not to be any huge deal breakers, and it look this pretty, it's fantastic. So that's a huge win as well. But obviously no watch is perfect when it comes to its bracelet or strap, and that's where I like to come in and offer some solutions or just some alternatives. That's where we're going to talk now about some of these straps on this watch. How cool is it going to look? Let's take a look. Always like to quickly chip in, how easy is it to take off the standard bracelet? Very important if you're doing strap changes. On this watch, it's great. Now, it would be rude to not start with the icon. This is the FKM rubber, which is a premium grade of rubber Tropic strap. Very nice in terms of the quality of rubber to start with. I mean, I've worn this for a lot, and there's only a few tiny wear marks. You don't get the issues of lint you get with silicone straps. So this is tough, flexible still, not quite as soft as silicone, but still, obviously it's very soft, to be honest with you. And this one I love the fact it has quick release pins. So yeah, the benefit of this is it works with this kind of watch, because it's a vintage style rubber strap to go with a vintage looking watch. I'll show it on wrist. Really just goes with it perfectly, to be honest. Comfortable, got the look. The black goes with the black, still got the vintage look. And for only £15, free delivery, what more could you ask for? Look at this on a grey suede. If you want to dress it down, the grey is going to work so well with that grey dial. But a cool look to it. So it's just not going to be too garish. It's going to be nice. But if you want to go bold, try an orange rubber. That's another option you could go for. But if you want to tone it down a bit, but go more dressy, grey suede. Let's check it out on wrist. Works so well with this watch, as you can see. So lovely and comfortable and soft. Oh, I love these. Now, what's good about these ones compared to other suede straps? This is a really good grade of suede. Very durable. As you can see, it's wearing up beautifully. I've worn this loads and it's barely worn, and yeah, there's barely any degradation, and you've got this nice neat stitching, and you get sealed edges as well. And what the benefit of these sealed edges is, a lot tougher and more rugged. You don't get the fraying and the feathering at the edges. You would not be disappointed. And I do these in other colors as well. These sell like hotcakes, and you can see why. Last strap, and then we'll be nearly done. Now, on a dive watch, you can still wear it on the NATO because these are so easy to get wet and they dry out and they're comfortable. And if one of the spring bars fails, your watch is still attached to your wrist, so you won't lose your beautiful dive watch in the water. So quickly feed this in, just show you how nice and good this sand color, which I sell, how this color works so nicely with those indices. Really nice with old radium because it's a similar sort of color and it doesn't add too much height, because I love these more seatbelt style NATOs because they are often thinner and softer and have a little bit of a sheen to them, a bit more of a classy look. Let's get this on wrist. I'll show you how well it wears on this beautiful watch. Obviously I'm biased, but I love that. It's so comfortable. Barely adds any height or bulk to the watch. It wears really nice and snugly to the wrist still. And if you don't like this colour, there are many others available again in my store. The link is in the description, but yeah, thanks for checking this bit out. So guys, in summary, would I recommend this EVANT Tropic Diver? Of course I would. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It does everything that I would expect from a vintage style watch that's a diver really well. Everything I would want in a dive watch, it has. It's lightweight, it's comfortable, it's pretty, it's a great price with the Swiss movement. The loom is decent, and that is, for me, is a really important thing. And the feel of the bezel, the screw down crown, all the tactile elements. There are a few slightly squiffy bits, like the bracelet is okay. Mainly the clasp is the issue. It doesn't feel that well made. It doesn't click together very smoothly, but I've said all that. Other than that, it all comes together really well. And at this price, I think it's a gorgeous piece. And it's nice to have something that is a more appropriate size, definitely a vintage size. And you could swap out the bracelet if you want to, for something to dress it up or dress it down. Really enjoyed reviewing this piece. And if you've enjoyed this video, I've done many more, and I hope you enjoy watching those. And subscribe if you've enjoyed this video or any of my others and you haven't clicked that old subscribe button yet. Doesn't cost you anything. See you in the next one. Bye for now.